This is episode 3 of Floss With Me. From Arts and Crafts Dental, I'm Dr. Bridget Young, and this is Floss With Me. It's the dental chat you want to hear without fingers in your mouth and the sound of a drill in your ear. Welcome. This episode is about Saint Apollonia, the patron saint of dentists and anyone suffering from tooth pain. Now, Saint Apollonia was born in Alexandria, Egypt during the time of the Roman Empire. Now, let me set the scene a little bit for you in Alexandria. During the Pharaoh times, Alexandria, Egypt was the absolute happening place. I mean, it was like going to New York City to make it. There were a lot of different kinds of people there. You know, if you could make it there, you could make it anywhere. There were creative people, artists, and scholars. There's a huge library, and there were a lot of different religions there. So there were Jewish people and Christians and whatever else. Well, Alexandria fell to the Romans. Now, the Romans were not Christians. They worshiped many gods and are referred to as pagans. But the Roman emperor believed that if someone wanted to only worship one god, he was going to be that god. So needless to say, there was a lot of political tension surrounding the subject of religion. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, or the Egyptian villa in Alexandria, was this very nice pagan couple. They were very loyal to their emperor, but they could not have a baby, no matter how hard they tried. And the wife became desperate, and she wanted nothing more in life than to have a child. I know this is starting to sound a bit like a fairy tale, but hang in there with me. Now, even though they were pagans, they knew a lot of Christians. I mean, you know, some of their best friends were Christians, so how bad could they be, right? And the mother, or the wife, learned about Saint Mary and started praying to the Virgin Mary. And lo and behold, she became pregnant and went on to give birth to a beautiful baby girl they named Apollonia. Now, Apollonia is the feminine version of Apollo, which was a great Roman god. He was the god of the sun, light, all things good, art, music, poetry, healing. So this was a great tribute to their religion. But the mother went on to be spiritual. And as little Apollonia was growing up, she reminded her of the power of prayer, and that her own life was a testimony to this power. And little Apollonia really latched on to this idea and soon became a disciple of Saint Anthony of Egypt and was baptized a Christian. She spent her time caring for people and spreading the good news, and evidently was very good at recruiting pagans to convert to Christianity. Now it's the year 249 AD, and the Roman Empire has been cursed with a horrible pandemic. People are dying all over the place. They're out of work. Food is scarce, so they're starving. And this disease is just ravaging the whole population, and it's a really frightening disease. It's reported that people would bleed through their eyes and their feet would rot off. They were so terrified of this disease that if a family member started showing symptoms, they would just throw them out the door of the house and let them die in the street. Now, the emperor got the bright idea to blame all the bad stuff on the Christians. And he started really rallying the troops against the Christians. Well, Apollonia and her followers, they were out in the streets taking care of these sick people, seemingly unafraid, which just helped to convince the good, simple folk of Alexandria that something evil was afoot. And one night, they formed an angry mob and started ransacking the homes of Christians, dragging them into the streets, torturing them by beating them, stoning them, until they died. But the prized Christian they really wanted was Apollonia. And it's reported that her own father actually turned her over to the governor. Now, once the authorities got a hold of her, it was all over for poor Apollonia. They insisted that she denounce her God, and of course she didn't, and they beat her jaws, they broke her teeth, they ripped her teeth out of her head. Then they dragged her out of the city, passed through the city gates, where they had this huge fire blazing ready for her. And they gave her another chance to denounce her religion. And what did she do? She faked them out, and she got them to let go of her. Then she got down on her knees, she said a prayer, and jumped up and leapt into the fire. And as she was doing this, she told everyone that if they would remember her, she would relieve their tooth pain. Now, how we know this is that a bishop who was there actually wrote all this down in a letter and sent it to another bishop. So it's recorded by an eyewitness. She went on to be canonized in the year 300 AD, and her commemoration day is February 9th. Now, this is not the end of the story. From then on, people continued to be fascinated with Saint Apollonia. There are hundreds of artist depictions of her, paintings, frescoes, sculptures, stained glass. She's usually shown as this very beautiful young woman holding this huge forceps. They're blacksmith pincers with an extracted tooth in its jaws. Now, in the 15th century, a medicine was not considered effective unless it had the name of a saint associated with it, and Saint Apollonia was the most popular name for medicine, probably because tooth pain was the most popular problem. Also used for healing were her teeth. Yes, her actual teeth. It's reported that after she was burned and the fire went out, her followers gathered up the remains that they could, most of which were her teeth. Now, King Henry VI was pretty grossed out by this and ordered his agents to go out into the population and gather up all the Saint Apollonia teeth, and ended up with more teeth than any one human could ever have in her head. But people really remained interested in her. Besides all the paintings and sculptures, they did plays about her. You can find little films about her on YouTube. Andy Warhol did a silkscreen series of her in 1984. Scholars believe that she was so popular because tooth pain is so shared among our population, that it's one experience that all people in the world have in common. And there was a time when if someone suffered from tooth pain, there wasn't much other than prayer that they had. They could go maybe to the blacksmith to get a tooth taken out, or to a barber, but those were not very good choices for people. There was a such thing as a tooth drawer, and this was someone that would ride into town on his wagon and be willing to take out anyone's tooth, but they made it a big spectacle. They set up a stage in the town square, and they made a big show of it, and that couldn't have been very much fun. And no one had any anesthetic. That did not exist. So many people really chose to suffer. And during that suffering, of course, they would pray to Saint Apollonia. Oh, one other thing, there were tonics. Yeah, you could buy a tonic that supposedly helped your toothache, and the main ingredient was urine. Cow urine, horse urine, human urine. So, prayers were people's best option. Now, today, I advise that if you have tooth pain, you can pray to Saint Apollonia, but do it on your way to a dental office. We are lucky now that almost every city of the world has a dentist, and many have one on every corner. Yes, I said lucky. That's all for now. Thank you for listening. Remember, brush twice a day, floss once a day, visit your dentist every 6 months. I'm Dr. Bridget Young, and this is Floss With Me. Until next time, happy flossing.